One in five suffer.
Erase the stigma.
Brain difference is not a crime.
Mental health isn't just your problem.
It's our problem.
And now, Mental Health Mondays with Marla and Dave.
Welcome to Mental Health Mondays with Marla and Dave. I'm Dave. This is my lovely wife and co-host, Marla. We have a fun show planned for you guys today. I want to remind you that today's show is brought to you by NAMI San Fernando Valley and Love and Beyond Reason.
And my birth giver.
And also, it's brought to you by you because your donations make this show possible. So please donate. We have a new YouTube channel along with Love and Beyond Reason. Now we have the Mental Health Mondays channel. We need you to subscribe. It's streaming on there now. You might be watching on that channel right now. Who knows?
Who knows?
Anyway, we got a little late start because we had some technical difficulties. But our guest today is none other than our very own Mimi.
Woo-hoo-hoo! So, let me just go right quick and just go off cuff. My mom, this is my mother, and she's the matriarch of the family. She has a career in nursing she ended her career as a chief of nurses at the VA Southern California. And during the course of that, she specialized in psychiatric nursing, and it made her even more invaluable to us even before we knew we needed her help. As we dealt with brain differences in our own family with our own children. So we'll hear a lot more about that. We'll be right back with more with Mimi.
Help someone who is struggling by supporting the National Alliance on Mental Illness and be a part of the NAMI effect. Hope starts with you.
All right, we're back.
With an official welcome, Marlene.
Yes,
Mimi,
we're officially welcoming
Mom.
Marlene McCraw, affectionately known to those in our family as Mimi. Yes. Mimi, welcome to the show.
Welcome. Hello, everyone.
Hey, Mimi. That's a pretty spiffy environment you have going on. Well, next time I come to see you in Vegas, I want to be on that couch, sweetie.
Oh, well, I welcome you to get on it.
Something tells me with the subject of this show that being on a couch near you as a psychiatric nurse might be damaging to me. I don't know. We'll see.
So Mimi, we wanted to focus this week because we having you're going to be on next week as well. So for this show today, we're going to really focus on how you kind of helped steer us through those early rough waters of dealing with brain differences with our two older children. And, because we dealt with the stigma of mental health just like everybody else did, took us a long time before even Marla and I were on the same page. You were hailing that something needed to be dealt with pretty early on. And, let's talk about that. But before we do that, why don't you give us some of your background, as Marla said in the intro, that you were a psychiatric nurse for many years.
Well, it always piqued my interest, and when I was in nursing school, I seemed to gravitate toward that. So my first experience helped me to identify what was going on in our family, because my first psychiatric experience was as a graduate nurse, was with adolescents.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
I didn't even know that.
In Los Angeles, and of course they were the sickest adolescents because it was Los Angeles General Hospital. So it was a locked unit, and our patients were, the sickest of the sick. They were all on psychiatric holds, but in at that particular time, beds were not at a premium like they are now, and we could keep our adolescents until we could see some improvement. So different.
So there was
from
no
what-
rush to get them out of and make the bed available for somebody
the goal,
else.
obviously, is what she's saying, was to actually treat
Treatment
them to
was
a
more the
difference.
goal than
Exactly.
just kind of
the timing.
making them less dangerous in the immediate near future.
Right. Some of them we treated for weeks and months. Even at Los Angeles General. Totally different than it is now, where it's just in and out, and the three things that you can be admitted for now, danger to self, danger to others, or gravely disabled, which good luck if you ever get admitted right now for that. That's almost an utter
gravely disabled.
So explain exactly, Mom, what are the prerequisites for someone who would be considered gravely disabled? What passes?
Gravely disabled simply means that you are mentally ill to the degree that you have everything around you. You have food, you have clothing, you have everything that you need to survive, and you're too sick to use it. And so because hospital beds are at such a premium, that's not usually a qualifier. So our patients nowadays have learned how to game the system. Even if they are gravely disabled, a lot of them are able to come in and they just keep upping the ante. What they do is they say that if they say, well, they're having a heart attack, or until they get to, okay, I'm going to kill myself. And so that is a magic bullet for patients to be admitted, because hospitals pretty much are afraid to reject a patient when they say that.
Scared of the liability.
Right. You get to, is it a gesture or is it real? That's what we say. It's a gesture. So then it gets down to, what is your plan? And then your plan needs to be a well thought out, real plan, or it's considered a gesture and you still may not make it in.
Bless you.
As a patient.
Wow. So that's great information. So let's pivot a little bit and take us to when you first started realizing
what was the trigger,
that there was an issue in the family, and what do you, if you can recall, because I'm not even sure I remember what that incident was and how, or the circumstance that you said, hey, you guys.
Yeah, I was going to say, I even want to make it a little bit simpler, meaning that for people who are listening, what for you was the difference between regular growing pains and veering off to a possible psychological diagnosis or issue?
Well, there was never a pivotal point, but behavior that was continual. When you have a child that you notice that is afraid to succeed, I began to notice that, when you are very good at something, and the minute you start succeeding and begin getting accolades for it and whatever, and then you change to something else. There was a continual pattern of that. First there was gymnastics, and then there was helping a high school with projects where you got accolades and
are you specifically speaking about Monisa's arts and crafts, when she was doing the T-shirts for the team that she did them for?
She did the team, and then she kept doing them because Layla, people started to buy her shirts.
Oh, that's right.
And then they wanted to carry it. There was a designer on Melrose that was like, these are dope. They were tie-dye shirts.
Her tie-dye. She was a tie-dye specialist.
Exactly.
That's true.
And they wanted to actually carry her line, and she quit.
But if you recall, there was gymnastics before that.
Sure. And she went to the top of the ceiling immediately.
Succeeded at that. And the moment success was
imminent
near or at hand, that was thrown to the wayside. So that is a key signal that you've got some issues that you need to look into.
Well, hold on, Mimi. We're about to go to a break, but that's actually a really good point to leave on and come back to, because that's something most parents would probably miss. We missed it because we didn't.
And we're going to dig into that a little bit more when we come
We'll
back
be right.
because I want to know what makes that a pivotal
Correct.
Issue.
All right.
We'll be right back with more with Mimi.
When Dave and Marla get together, it's hot.
You may not realize it, but these words, often used to describe someone with a mental health condition, can be very harmful. In a country where 1 in 5 people are affected by a mental health condition, it's time for all of us to step up and change the conversation. Just because someone's struggle isn't obvious on the outside doesn't mean they aren't hurting on the inside. We need to see the person, not the condition. Join with me, pledge to be stigma-free.
It's time for the Mental Health Minute with Marla and Dave.
Also called affective disorders, mood disorders may involve feeling sad all the time, losing interest in important parts of life, fluctuating between extreme happiness and extreme sadness.
Other symptoms may be irritability, changes in appetite or weight, changes in sleep patterns, difficulty concentrating.
The most common mood disorders are depression, bipolar disorder, seasonal affective disorder, also known as SAD, interestingly enough, or self-harm. An estimated 21.4% of U.S. adults experience any mood disorder at some time in their lives.
If you or anyone that you know are experiencing any of these symptoms, distorted moods or emotional states, please, we ask, seek professional help. Life can get better. Brought to you by NAMI San Fernando Valley and Loving Beyond Reason.
David is a thinker.
I never do anything without thinking about it first.
Marla is a feeler.
I basically wear my personality on my sleeve.
But when Marla and Dave get together, it's like a match dancing with a firecracker.
You know, it's kind of funny. We're going to get back to that question for Mimi of how she could tell the difference, which would seem to most of us that, you know, those are just standard course changes for children. This is kind of cool because it's like bring your mother to work day. So I kind of like it because I talk to my mother multiple times in a day. How often do you think you'd say we talk, Mimi, on average?
Oh, it varies anytime.
At least an hour every morning.
It's not an hour. First of all, stay out of our business.
I would say about an hour every morning.
On average, we tend to talk, I would say, at least a minimum of 2 times a day.
Yeah, that's the minimum.
Oh, that's it.
But we check in. I check in because I wanna see how her day is going, and
well, that's good, Mimi. That's what makes you a loving Mimi.
How often does your mother call you, Dave?
I call my mother every day.
So back to the show.
I call my mother daily.
I want to get back to a different aspect of what we're talking about.
Okay.
So we're talking about what we did, flashpoints at the time to identify that something needed to happen. But going forward, looking back, we can identify things that we thought were phenomenal and wonderful.
Exactly. That's kind of what I was going to touch on as well.
Right. If we picked up on it then, we would have known long before I pointed it out, because, you know, at 2, Marla and Moniece, it seemed that they both were born talking. I don't ever remember when they weren't talking.
Mom,
and so
I didn't nurse and talk. Stop it.
The things that were so phenomenal and funny. I mean,
there.
if you were talking in a sentence and you mentioned a word, the subject could change immediately and there would be a story. You could say, and the street is red and blue, and then you could say,
and we were young, immature parents. That's true.
right.
And we did play those games.
Streetcar, and suddenly the sentence would be, oh, and the streetcar was going down the street. And if you said moon, oh yes, and the moon was white. There was a flight of ideas that when you look back and identified, it was phenomenal at that time. But that was a flight of ideas that
represented a
we
brain
could have-
difference that we didn't really clearly identify.
Exactly. And crying for hours
Yeah.
for nothing.
Now, can you say that Moniece and I had that? And I wasn't a crier for no reason.
No, not for no reason.
Well, no,
But when you had those shoes on your feet,
I was uncomfortable.
yes, Marla was born, she weighed 10.5 pounds and her feet
Tony
Size
said,
12.
Tony said,
She had size 12, man size 12
okay,
feet.
first of all, you're welcome.
No, but because she was in such a small space, her feet were turned in, and I had to put shoes on her that had a bottom on them with a steel bar. And Marla cried for 24 hours, literally.
Oh, you
until
mean the shoes didn't bend?
They were it was
They
corrected.
were
They had a
correctional
bar
shoes. Okay.
that wouldn't
Right.
let my feet turn in. It forced my feet to do this.
And Moniece had the same behavior, not necessarily
hair.
because of pain, but if there was something that was going on
Well, if
until
Moniece had a T-shirt on
That
that
had
had
a
a
tag.
tag in it,
She
she
was-
would.
I can't.
Miserable.
It itches, and she'd be like 1.5. It itches. It
Okay,
itches.
okay.
That's
Now,
what it
the
sounded
one
like.
thing that I'm catching on, though, Mimi, that I want to really focus on, because this is, I think, really going to be interesting for others out there as they start to go through child rearing, and they might encounter a brain difference. You said, things that were phenomenal. I remember teaching Moniece how to read, and I had just got hooked on phonics. I think either you or
3.
Poppy had sent us hooked on phonics. And I was teaching both the kids because the hooked on phonics at the time was so the thing to do, and it can teach any little kid how to read. I remember going through like lesson 1.5. And by the time before I even got to lesson 3, we're driving down the street. And Moniece, of course, all the kids were doing good because the hooked on phonics was fun. But we were driving down the street. She said, "Oh, Burger King." She points at the sign, Burger King. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, okay.
She knows that.
We always go to Burger King, so you know that. Wendy's, Taco Bell.
Minestrone.
Then she went to something like looking at a menu and it said minestrone. And I'm thinking to myself, first of all, minestrone, but wait. How'd you even know that to say minestrone mistakenly? And suddenly, before she was 4 years old, she could fully read. And we didn't even go through the whole process. She just knew how to read. So, and again, for us, we're thinking, oh, she's brilliant. And she is brilliant. But you're saying that things like that could also indicate
Another issue.
problems in the future?
Well, no, not those examples. She was
Okay.
just a bright child.
Right.
But when she was in preschool, if someone would pick her up that she knew intimately that she didn't want to go with, she would just start screaming.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, just screaming. And that's what she would do. If she would come and stay with me, she would not want to go to you guys. She would turn her head and
She had attitude because she
she
didn't want us to
showed
drop her off
signs-
to be babysat. It's true.
Moniece showed signs of abandonment at 2.
Yeah, disassociation. She would. She was dissociative.
So,
Totally.
those, and is that how you would describe it? More of a disassociation socially?
It was abandonment that she
Yeah, lack
felt.
of attachment.
Okay.
Right.
So when we come back, we're going to talk about signs that we might have seen or we might have missed with DJ as well. So other families dealing with issues like ours can now maybe get a chance to get a head start. We'll be back with Mimi. All right. The fun music means just what Marla sang. It is poll time.
It's time for the poll.
And last week we asked a very important poll question, and we actually have started putting the poll questions out on our social media sites as well. Last week the question was, what percentage of people who suffer from depression have a higher risk of developing cardiovascular and metabolic diseases? Now, Mimi, the options are, or were, and still are, A, 20%, B, 30%, or C, 40%. And the question again, what percentage of people who suffer from depression have a higher risk of developing cardiovascular and metabolic diseases? 20, 30, or 40%? What's your guess, Mimi?
I would say 30%.
You would say 30%. Maybe things have changed, but it's actually 40%.
It's a lot of people.
And most of the people who took the poll question online did say 40% as well. So maybe you have one more chance, and we'll know next week if you're going to get all the money that the winners get. No, just joking. What's the new poll question, Marla?
Games. The new poll question is, what percentage of the adult population in the United States suffer from mental illness? 11%, 18%, or 23%?
And this just in, there's a new option, D, 42%.
What?
Yes, it's not on your document, but it's on my document because I updated the document.
Oh, for yourself.
For everyone.
Okay.
So the options are 11%, 18%, 23%, or D, 42%. What percentage of the adult population in the U.S. suffers from mental illness of any kind? Now, I had to do that, and I updated the numbers because post-COVID, things have changed.
Hello, controlling the outcome.
Anyway.
Sounds like that.
That's a little hint. That's a little built-in hint. So what's your guess, Mimi?
42%.
42%. We'll find out next week if Mimi is absolutely correct. And this is not a mom competition, but Mimi, we love you. Thank you for participating in the poll question break. And we are going right back to more of the conversation with Mimi in just a sec. All right, we're back that quickly. So now we talked about early signs with Moniece. There were other signs. I remember she was had a friend was sleeping over or came over to play. And I remember we were just like any parent. You always think that it's the other kid that's the problem. And so
I don't think that.
And so at least I do. That's my default.
That's Dave's default MO.
So Moniece was playing with one of her little friends, and we were all out the pool swimming. But they went back into the room. Next thing you know, we see a little wisp of smoke coming out the window. We're like, what the? Go flying in and immediately just went ballistic, called the little girl's mother, her father.
Oh, that was her.
We don't know now.
No, I do know.
So anyway, we sent that child home and thought nothing else of it. And so little things were happening that we weren't quite sure whether you categorize it as, just kids being kids, getting in trouble, just need a little bit more discipline, or is that really a brain difference?
Well, can I say this right quick? This is where Mimi's presence comes in to be huge. And Moniece and I discussed this live online, literally probably last week, that there's so many things, especially if you don't have anyone in your immediate circle that you love and trust that understands. It's a whole different ball game to be able to even believe what you're seeing to be on the pathological spectrum of difference. So I think that, I know that one time Moniece was in the room and I came to you and I said she was on the phone having a conversation as a preteen, but what she was saying and the language was so ridiculous and foul. And I came to David, I said, oh my God, I think she has multiple personality disorder. And Dave was like, what are you even talking about? And I said, just don't say anything. Go and listen at the door. So there were so many things that took us in different directions because as most parents, you want to be able to solve your kids' differences. So let's move on to D.
So now with DJ, even before Mimi told us anything about DJ's behavior, I think the first indication with DJ was his preschool. Where we were sending both DJ and Moniece, and they said, well, DJ definitely has attention
ADHD.
Deficit disorder. And we recommend that he gets on Ritalin right away. Now, at the time, that was a big thing. Every kid was almost getting put on Ritalin.
It's like amoxicillin.
And so I really didn't want to give my kids any medication for just regular little kid behavior. Little kids want to go out and play, and they have a lot of energy. Let them go outside and play. They don't need to,
And let's be real, as a minority parent, we were even that much more skeptical of you trying to medicate our kids.
And I'll say this, it's unfortunate that the evangelical community it also hosts a lot of their racism in this country. And so the school the kids were going to was a Christian school. I'm not going to name the name, but it did feel like there was a little racism going on there. And so that automatically was a red flag to me. Not only did we not put him on Ritalin, we took him out to school, both of them out of the school. But I will say this, now substance use disorder is a mental illness. Now, DJ, as he was going through high school, developed a drug issue. And so at the time, I don't know, Mimi, am I not understanding that correctly? Was it always considered a mental health issue?
Is that
drug use?
Dual diagnosis?
Only for African Americans.
Explain that. What do you mean by that?
It wasn't, it until it became broadly used by a lot of people, it was racially targeted. Drugs were. It became a mental health issue when it became a broad use of
Caucasian communities.
When everyone was dealing with the drug abuse, then it becomes a mental health issue.
It became a mental illness.
I see what you're saying. It's a crime.
It was a crime.
Yeah.
And it was racially targeted.
Okay, and that also, the reason why we're bringing up these points in this way is because we want you to understand where some of the stigmas come from, especially in communities of color. All these things are stacked against you before you even can contemplate getting real help. You first have to understand that you have a real issue. So DJ had that dual diagnosis going on, and it was much later, because of the stuff that you had helped us with, the situation that you had helped us with Moniece, we decided to get D some therapy as well. And, again, the therapies just weren't really adding up to me. Marlene, you can comment.
Well, yeah, that happened. But again, I want every parent to know that is the journey. But you're right. So they were going to therapy. There was multiple diagnoses that were thrown at us for both of them.
Yeah, Moniece I think, started therapy in like fifth grade.
Fifth grade.
And I think DJ started in sixth grade.
Sixth or seventh. He was a junior high student, and his was anxiety, and they tried to put him on anxiety medication. But it was strangely not connecting fully. It seemed like that you're giving us some information, but when we got to a final diagnosis that really we could recognize as a pattern of behavior, we were both like, oh.
Right. And
that makes perfect sense.
And there were even some diagnoses that the name itself didn't really make that much sense to me, especially with Moniece's initial diagnosis. It really, the name itself seemed to imply that it maybe wasn't that deep of an issue. And that's my ignorance, because I didn't understand that the name didn't necessarily semantically mean what it implied.
But what I will say on Mimi's credit, at one point, Mimi said, point blank, she looked at me and she said, I'll tell you what this means. The kids are really sick. There's a real need here that's psychological that needs to be managed. And she said it with such a calm decidedness that we knew we needed to take different action.
Absolutely. So the conversation is going strong. We're having a great time with Mimi. Stick around.
Bad.
What are you doing?
You're worthless.
Don't trust them. They'll hurt you. You're worthless.
It's pointless.
When the pain of schizophrenia meets hope, everything can change. Help someone who is struggling by supporting the National Alliance on Mental Illness and be a part of the NAMI effect. Hope starts with you.
It's raw, real, and unfiltered.
All right, so Mimi, this conversation has really been helpful, especially as we try to go back and look at the past and try to see if there's things that can jump out at us that we can use to help other families that dealing with similar circumstances. Well,
I just want, Mom, we're coming to the close of episode 1. of course, we're going to be continuing this conversation with you and talking to you about, how your expertise just in your field has now come full circle to help us with our endeavors going forward to help plug information and help in for other families. But I want to give you the closing word, just to just say something concise that will help other families trust the community of information that you see that might possibly lead to help.
Well, one of the you have to be open to behavior that is a little abnormal,
different,
is but different, and get a handle on it early, because it becomes, I suppose we'll lead on this in the next part. After a person is 18, you've lost your opportunity. And so if you can get a handle on, even manipulative behavior. When I think of Moniece, when she was 2, she had learned how to use her, you could see the manipulative behavior. I can remember her screaming and crying, and I would take her to daycare, and they would say, she'll be okay. I was horrified because she was with me and away from her parents, and I thought, oh my goodness. And as soon as I would drive off, she would be fine. And you could see that behavior over and over. I'd wash her hair and she would be screaming to the top of her lungs, until I would do something to shock her, like scream, this sounds crazy, but scream louder than her, and then I could get it to stop. But
change your attention.
Those kinds of behaviors that are
outside of the norm is,
yes, you need to pay attention to it early.
And we will pick up on that as we continue the discussion next week. Now, we're going to continue talking with Mimi. You guys will watch the rest of the discussion and our conversation with Mimi next week. Unfortunately, we're out of time for this week. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Make sure you stick around. Join us next week for the conclusion of our discussion with Mimi. Thank you so much, Mimi, otherwise professionally known as Marlene McCraw. Yes. And those of us in the family, we call her Mimi. We'll be back with Mimi next week.
See you, Mom.
Bye-bye.